He walked into that salon holding another woman's hand, and then he saw her, the woman he destroyed 6 years ago, the one he left without looking back. She was standing there, calm, beautiful, untouchable, but it wasn't her that shattered him. It was the little girl beside her, 5 years old, dark curls, his eyes staring back at him. He thought he buried the past, but the past was alive, breathing, holding crayons. And the woman he's about to marry? She has no idea that in 36 hours, everything she believes will burn, because some secrets don't stay buried. They grow up. The salon smelled like jasmine and money. Soft piano music drifted through white marble floors. Crystal chandeliers caught the afternoon light, scattering it like scattered diamonds across leather chairs and gold-framed mirrors. Everything here whispered luxury. Everything here was untouchable. Min Jae Kim stood at the entrance, his hand resting lightly on the small of Serena's back. She was radiant, blonde hair cascading over her shoulders, diamond earrings catching every angle of light. Perfect. Polished. Everything a man in his position was supposed to want. "This place is beautiful," she breathed, her eyes wide with excitement. "I can't believe we're really doing this." He smiled. It was the smile he'd perfected over years of negotiations, threats, and silent power plays. The smile that never reached his eyes. "Only the best for you," he said quietly. Serena beamed. She didn't notice the weight in his voice. She never did. A young receptionist approached, her movements precise and practiced. "Mr. Kim, welcome. Your appointment is ready. This way, please." They followed her through a corridor lined with white orchids, past stations where women sat beneath soft lighting, their reflections multiplied in endless mirrors. Min Jae's gaze swept the room with the instinct of a man who'd survived by seeing everything. Always. And then he saw her. Time didn't stop. It shattered. She was standing at the far end of the salon, her back to him, dark curls pulled into a loose bun at the nape of her neck. She wore a simple black apron over a cream blouse, her movements graceful as she arranged brushes and styling tools with quiet focus. He knew the curve of her shoulders, the way she tilted her head when she concentrated, the rhythm of her breathing. Amara. His chest tightened. The air felt thinner, heavier. 6 years collapsed into seconds. She turned. Their eyes met, and the world went silent. Her hand froze mid-reach. The brush she was holding slipped from her fingers, clattering onto the marble counter. For a heartbeat, neither of them moved. Neither of them breathed. Amara's lips parted slightly, her expression unreadable. Shock, perhaps. Or something deeper. Something buried. Min Jae felt his pulse hammering against his ribs. He wanted to speak, to say something, anything. But his throat was locked, his mind blank. "Min Jae?" Serena's voice cut through the haze. She was looking at him, confused. "Are you okay?" He blinked. The spell broke. "I'm fine," he said, his voice flat. But he wasn't. He wasn't fine at all. Amara's gaze dropped. She turned away, reaching down to pick up the fallen brush, her movements slow and deliberate. When she straightened, her face was composed again, smooth, controlled, but her hands were trembling. "Mr. Kim." The receptionist gestured toward a private station near the window. "Your stylist will be with you shortly. Please make yourself comfortable." Serena moved forward eagerly, her hand slipping from his. Min Jae followed, his legs moving on autopilot, but his eyes stayed locked on Amara. She didn't look at him again. And then he heard it, a soft giggle. His gaze shifted. A little girl was sitting on a cushioned bench near Amara's station, her legs swinging beneath her, crayons scattered across a coloring book. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. Dark curls framed her face in soft spirals. Her skin was a warm, rich brown, like Amara's. Beautiful. But it was her eyes that stopped him cold. They were his. Dark, sharp, unmistakable. The little girl looked up, catching his stare. She tilted her head, curiosity flickering across her features. Then she smiled, a small, innocent smile, and went back to coloring. Min Jae's breath caught in his chest. No, no. His mind raced, calculations colliding with disbelief. 6 years. She would be 5. The timeline fit. The eyes fit. Everything fit. "Min Jae, look at this." Serena was holding up a color swatch, oblivious. "Do you think this shade would look good for the bridesmaids?" He didn't answer. He couldn't, because across the salon, Amara was watching him. Her expression was calm, distant, but her eyes burned with something fierce, something protective. She walked toward the little girl, her movements deliberate. She crouched down beside her, smoothing a hand over her curls. "Lily, baby, let's go get some juice, okay?" The girl, Lily, nodded eagerly. She gathered her crayons with clumsy hands, tucking them into a small bag. Amara stood, taking her hand. And then, for just a moment, Amara's gaze lifted. She looked at him, not with anger, not with longing, with finality. She turned and walked away, the little girl's hand clasped tightly in hers. Minjae stood frozen, his world unraveling in slow motion. Serena was still talking. The receptionist was still smiling. The salon was still beautiful and untouchable. But nothing would ever be the same, because 6 years ago, he'd walked away from the only woman who'd ever seen him as something more than power and fear. And now, she'd given him something he didn't know existed. A daughter. His daughter. Minjae couldn't remember the last hour. Serena had talked. The stylist had talked. Someone brought champagne. Papers were signed. Appointments were confirmed. The world kept turning, but he was drowning. He sat in the leather chair, his reflection staring back at him from the mirror. He looked calm, controlled, untouchable. Inside, he was burning. A daughter. The words played on a loop in his mind. Over and over. Relentless. He'd spent 6 years building an empire. 6 years erasing the man he used to be. 6 years convincing himself that Amara was a mistake, a weakness he'd outgrown. And all this time, she'd been raising his child. Alone. He felt something crack inside his chest. Something he'd buried so deep he'd forgotten it existed. Guilt. Mr. Kim? The stylist's voice was soft, polite. Would you like some water? He blinked, focused. No, thank you. Serena was across the salon, laughing with her bridesmaids, holding up fabric samples and magazine clippings. She looked radiant, happy. She had no idea that the man she was about to marry was fracturing in real time. Minjae's gaze drifted back to the station where Amara had been. She wasn't there anymore. The bench where the little girl, Lily, had been sitting was empty. The crayons were gone. The coloring book was gone. They left. Panic spiked through him, sharp and unexpected. He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Minjae? Serena looked over, surprised. I need a moment, he said, his voice tight. He didn't wait for her response. He walked through the salon, past the mirrors and the orchids and the soft music, his pulse pounding in his ears. The receptionist looked up as he approached. Mr. Kim, is everything... The woman who was here earlier, he interrupted, his tone clipped. Dark hair, black apron. Where is she? The receptionist hesitated. Ms. Amara? She's on her break. I believe she stepped outside. Outside. Minjae moved before he could think. He pushed through the glass doors and into the late afternoon sunlight. The street was busy. Cars passing, people walking, the hum of the city pressing in from all sides. He scanned the sidewalk, his eyes sharp, searching, and then he saw her. Amara was standing at the corner, one hand holding Lily's, the other clutching a small juice box. She was crouched down, wiping something from the little girl's cheek with a tissue, her expression soft and focused. She looked peaceful. The sight of it twisted something deep inside him. He started walking. Amara must have sensed him. She stiffened, her hand pausing mid-motion. Slowly, she stood, turning to face him. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Her face was unreadable, calm, but her eyes, those dark, beautiful eyes, were a storm. Minjae, she said quietly. Not a question, just his name. He stopped a few feet away, his hands in his pockets. He didn't trust himself to move closer. Is she mine? His voice was low, rough. Amara's jaw tightened. She glanced down at Lily, who was sipping her juice, oblivious. Go wait by the tree, baby, Amara said softly. I'll be right there. Lily nodded and skipped off toward a nearby oak, humming to herself. Amara turned back to him. Her expression hardened. You don't get to do this, she said, her voice quiet but sharp. You don't get to walk back into my life after 6 years and ask me that. I need to know. You left. The word cracked like a whip. You walked away without a word, without a reason. I waited for you. I called. I showed up at your apartment and you were gone. Minjae swallowed. The memory was still fresh, even after all these years. The night he'd chosen power over her. The night he'd decided that love made you weak. I had my reasons, he said. I'm sure you did. Her voice was ice. And I had mine for not chasing you. Amara, she's not your concern, she interrupted, her eyes blazing. She's mine. I've raised her. I've fed her, clothed her, loved her. You don't get to show up in a tailored suit with your perfect fiancée and claim her. The words hit him like a fist to the chest. I didn't know, he said, his voice breaking slightly. I swear I didn't know. Something flickered in her expression. Pain, maybe, or regret. Would it have mattered? she asked softly. The question hung in the air between them, heavy and unanswerable. Min-jae looked past her, toward the little girl under the tree. Lily was crouched down, picking up acorns and arranging them in a careful line. She was humming again, completely lost in her own world. She looked so small, so fragile, and she was his. Yes, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. It would have mattered. Amara's expression softened, just for a moment, but then she shook her head. It's too late, Min-jae. It's not. You're getting married in 2 days. The words landed like a blow. He opened his mouth to respond, but nothing came out, because she was right. He was getting married, to a woman he didn't love, to a life he'd chosen because it was safe, expected, controllable. But standing here, looking at Amara, at the life they could have had, he felt the weight of that choice crushing him. Does she know? He asked quietly. About me? Amara's gaze didn't waver. She knows she has a father. She doesn't know who he is. Why? Because I wasn't going to let you break her heart the way you broke mine. The words cut deeper than any blade. Min-jae looked down, his jaw tight. He wanted to argue, to defend himself, to say that he'd changed, that he wasn't that man anymore. But he was. He was still the man who chose power over love, fear over vulnerability. I want to meet her, he said, his voice hoarse. Amara's eyes widened. No, she's my daughter. She's my daughter. You gave up that right when you left. I didn't know. And now you do. Her voice was firm, final. And you're still walking away. You're still choosing someone else. He wanted to deny it, to tell her she was wrong, but he couldn't, because in 2 days, he would stand at an altar and marry a woman he didn't love, and Amara and Lily would become ghosts again. She must have seen it in his eyes, the resignation, the defeat. Her expression shifted, softening into something that looked almost like pity. Go back to your fiancé, Min-jae, she said quietly. Go back to your life. Forget you saw us. She turned and walked toward Lily, her shoulders straight, her head high, and Min-jae stood there, frozen, watching the only woman he'd ever loved walk away. Again. Min-jae didn't go back inside. He stood on the sidewalk long after Amara and Lily disappeared around the corner. The city moved around him. Cars honking, people brushing past, the world indifferent to the wreckage inside his chest. He'd built an empire on control, on precision, on never letting emotion dictate his choices. And in 5 minutes, a woman and a child had destroyed it all. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, the screen lighting up with a message from Serena. Where are you? Everything okay? He stared at the words for a long moment. Then he typed back, be right there. He slipped the phone back into his pocket and forced himself to move. 1 foot in front of the other. Back through the glass doors. Back into the perfumed air and soft lighting. Back into the lie. Serena was waiting for him at the styling station, her expression a mix of concern and irritation. What was that about? She asked, her voice low. Just needed some air, he said evenly. She studied him for a moment, her blue eyes searching. Then she sighed and let it go. She always did. Well, we're almost done here, she said, turning back to the stylist. Just a few more details and we can head to dinner. Dinner. Right. He was supposed to meet her parents tonight, toast to their future. Smile and nod while they talked about the wedding and the honeymoon, and the life they were going to build together. The life that felt like a noose tightening around his neck. The rest of the appointment passed in a blur. He nodded when he was supposed to nod, smiled when he was supposed to smile, played the role he'd been playing for years. But his mind was elsewhere. He kept seeing Lily's face, her dark curls, her small hands arranging acorns under the tree, his daughter. The thought was still surreal, still impossible. And yet, by the time they left the salon, the sun was setting, casting the city in shades of gold and shadow. Serena slipped her hand into his as they walked toward the car, chattering about floral arrangements and seating charts. Min-jae barely heard her, because as they passed the alley beside the salon, he saw her, Amara. She was standing near the back entrance, her apron discarded, her purse slung over one shoulder. Lily was beside her, holding a small stuffed rabbit, her head resting against Amara's leg. They were waiting for something. A ride, maybe. Or a bus. Min-jae's steps slowed. Amara looked up. Their eyes met. And for a heartbeat, the world fell away again. Min-jae? Serena tugged at his hand. Come on. We're going to be late. He didn't move. Amara's expression was unreadable. She bent down, scooping Lily into her arms. The little girl wrapped her arms around her mother's neck, burying her face in her shoulder. And then Amara turned and walked away. Min-jae. Serena's voice was sharper now. What are you looking at? He blinked, pulled himself back. Nothing. he said. Let's go. Dinner was torture. Serena's parents were warm, welcoming, everything they were supposed to be. Her father was a retired judge, her mother a philanthropist. They asked him about his business, carefully, politely, never pressing too hard. They toasted to the future. They laughed at his jokes. And the entire time, Min-jae felt like he was drowning. He excused himself halfway through the meal, retreating to the restaurant's private terrace. The night air was cool, the city lights stretching out below him like a glittering web. He pulled out his phone. He shouldn't. He knew he shouldn't. But his fingers moved before his mind could stop them. He opened a search engine and typed, Amara plus hairstylist plus city name. Nothing. He tried again. Different combinations. Different keywords. And then, on the third try, he found it. A small social media profile. No last name. Just Amara. The profile picture was a candid shot. Her laughing, her curls loose around her shoulders, sunlight catching the curve of her cheek. She looked happy. He scrolled. There weren't many posts. A few pictures of cityscapes, a sunset, a coffee cup, and then a photo of Lily. She was sitting in a park, her legs dangling from a swing, her face lit up with pure joy. The caption read, My whole world. Min-jae's chest tightened. He stared at the photo for a long time, at the little girl who shared his eyes, at the life he'd never known existed. And for the first time in 6 years, he let himself feel it. The regret, the loss, the unbearable weight of what he'd thrown away. There you are, he turned. Serena was standing in the doorway, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. You've been acting strange all day, she said quietly. What's going on? Min-jae slipped his phone into his pocket. Nothing, just wedding nerves. She didn't believe him. He could see it in her eyes, but she smiled anyway. She always did. Come back inside, she said. They're bringing out dessert. He nodded, and he followed her back into the warmth and the laughter and the life that was supposed to be his. But his mind stayed on the terrace, on a little girl in a park, on a woman who'd rebuilt her world without him, on the choice he'd made 6 years ago, and the one he was about to make now. Min-jae didn't sleep. He lay in bed beside Serena, staring at the ceiling, watching shadows shift across the plaster. She was curled on her side, breathing softly, one hand tucked beneath her cheek, peaceful, unaware. He turned his head, studying her profile in the darkness. She was beautiful, kind, everything a man was supposed to want. But when he closed his eyes, all he saw was Amara and Lily. The clock on the nightstand read 3:47 a.m. In 40 hours he would be married. In 40 hours this would all be permanent. He slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Serena, and moved to the window. The city stretched out below, millions of lights, millions of lives, all of them moving forward while he stood frozen. His phone was on the dresser. He picked it up. He shouldn't. But his fingers were already moving, pulling up the profile he'd found earlier, scrolling through photos, searching for pieces of a life he'd never been part of. There, another photo of Lily. This one was recent, maybe a few weeks old. She was holding a birthday cake, her face covered in frosting, her smile so wide it seemed to split the world in half. The caption read, 5 years of pure magic. Happy birthday, my love. 5 years. He'd missed all of it. First steps, first words, first birthday, first everything. The realization hit him like a punch to the gut. He sat down on the edge of the bed, the phone trembling in his hands. Min-jae? He froze. Serena was awake, sitting up, her hair tousled, her eyes soft with concern. What are you doing? She asked gently. He couldn't answer. She slid out of bed and crossed to him, kneeling in front of him, her hands resting on his knees. Talk to me, she whispered. Please. You've been somewhere else all day. He looked down at her open, trusting face, at the woman who'd done nothing wrong except love a man who couldn't love her back. I'm sorry, he said, his voice breaking, her brow furrowed. For what? For lying, for pretending, for dragging you into a life I can't give you. But the words stuck in his throat. Just wedding stress, he said instead. She smiled, relief washing over her features. She cupped his face in her hands. We're going to be so happy, she whispered. I promise. And that's when he knew. He couldn't do this. Not to her. Not to himself. Not to the little girl who didn't even know his name. The next morning, Min-jae did something he hadn't done in years. He lied to Serena. He told her he had a last-minute meeting. Business that couldn't wait. She'd frowned, disappointed, but she'd believed him. She always did. He drove across the city, his hands tight on the wheel, his mind racing. He didn't have a plan. He didn't have answers. He just knew he had to see her. Them. The salon didn't open until 10, but he parked across the street and waited. Minutes stretched into an hour. The city woke up around him. Shops opening, people passing, the world indifferent to the chaos inside his chest. And then, he saw her. Amara was walking down the sidewalk, Lily's hand clasped in hers. The little girl was chattering, animated, pointing at something in a shop window. Amara smiled down at her, that same soft, protective expression from yesterday. They stopped at the salon door. Amara crouched down, adjusting Lily's backpack, smoothing a curl away from her face. She said something Minjae couldn't hear. Lily nodded, then threw her arms around Amara's neck in a tight hug. The gesture was so simple, so pure. It broke something inside him. Amara stood, watching as Lily skipped down the sidewalk toward a woman waiting at the corner. A neighbor, maybe, or a babysitter. The little girl waved, her smile bright, before disappearing around the corner. Amara stood there for a moment watching her go, and then she turned, and saw him. Her entire body went rigid. Minjae got out of the car. He crossed the street slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. Amara didn't move. She just watched him approach, her expression unreadable. "What are you doing here?" she asked quietly. "I needed to see you. You saw me yesterday. I need to talk to you." "There's nothing to talk about." "There's everything to talk about." His voice cracked. "Amara, please." She looked away, her jaw tight. For a moment, he thought she would walk inside and shut the door in his face. But she didn't. "You have 5 minutes," she said. She led him around the corner, into a small park tucked between buildings. It was quiet here. Just a few benches, a fountain, morning sunlight filtering through the trees. They sat. Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. "I didn't know," Minjae said finally. "I swear, I didn't know about her." Amara stared at the fountain. Would it have changed anything? Yes. Liar. The word was soft but sharp. "I'm not lying." She turned to face him, her eyes blazing. "You left me, Minjae. You didn't just walk away. You vanished. Like I never existed. Like what we had meant nothing. It wasn't nothing. Then what was it?" Her voice rose, cracking. "Because I loved you. I loved you. And you threw me away like I was disposable." The words hit him like shrapnel. "I thought I was protecting you," he said, his voice rough. "From what? From me. From my life. From the things I was becoming." She laughed bitterly. "So you made the choice for both of us. How noble. I was trying to—" "You were a coward." Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "You didn't protect me. You destroyed me." The silence that followed was deafening. Minjae looked down at his hands. "I know. Do you?" She wiped at her eyes, angry at herself for crying. "Do you have any idea what it was like? Finding out I was pregnant 2 weeks after you disappeared? Calling you over and over? Getting nothing? Showing up at your apartment and finding it empty?" He couldn't look at her. "I almost didn't keep her," Amara whispered. His head snapped up. "I almost didn't," she repeated, her voice shaking. "Because I was terrified. I was alone. I had no money, no support, no you. And I thought, how can I bring a child into this? How can I be enough?" Tears were streaming down her face now. But then I felt her move, and I looked at that ultrasound and saw her perfect little face. And I knew I would do anything for her. I would be enough, even if it killed me. Minjae felt something shatter inside his chest. "And I was," she continued, her voice fierce now. "I worked 3 jobs. I slept 4 hours a night. I gave up everything. But I kept her safe. I kept her loved. And she's the best thing that ever happened to me." She stood, looking down at him with something that looked like pity. "So don't come here now, with your guilt and your regret, and tell me you didn't know. Because it doesn't matter. You weren't there. And we survived without you." She turned to walk away. "I want to be in her life." Amara stopped. Slowly, she turned back. "No, she's my daughter. She's my daughter. You're just the man who gave her half her DNA. Amara, you're getting married tomorrow, Minjae." Her voice was ice. "Go marry your perfect fiancé. Go live your perfect life. And leave us alone. I'm calling it off." The words hung in the air. Amara stared at him, her eyes wide. "What? The wedding," he said, standing. "I'm calling it off. You're insane. Maybe. But I can't marry her. Not after this. Not after seeing you again. Not after knowing about Lily. So you're going to blow up your entire life because of guilt?" "No." He stepped closer. "Because I never stopped loving you." Amara's breath hitched. "That's not fair," she whispered. "I know. You can't just—" Her voice broke. "You can't just say that. It's the truth." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "It's too late." "It's not." "It is." She shook her head, backing away. "I can't do this again. I can't let you in just to watch you leave, and I won't let you do that to Lily. I'm not leaving. You already did once. The words cut deeper than any blade. Min-jae opened his mouth to respond, but she was already walking away. Amara, wait, 5 minutes are up, she called over her shoulder. And then she was gone. He stood there, alone in the park. The morning sun too bright, the world too loud. And for the first time in 6 years, Min-jae Kim didn't know what to do. Min-jae sat in his car for an hour. He didn't drive, didn't move, just stared through the windshield at nothing. His phone buzzed. Serena, how's the meeting going? Missing you. He closed his eyes. Call it off. The thought had been circling his mind since the moment he'd said it out loud. But saying it and doing it were two different things. Calling off the wedding meant destroying Serena. It meant humiliating her in front of her family, her friends, the entire social circle they'd built together. It meant admitting he'd been lying to her for months, maybe years. But marrying her meant lying for the rest of his life, and that was something he couldn't do anymore. He picked up his phone. His finger hovered over Serena's name. Then he dialed someone else. The line rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Min-jae, this is unexpected. Hyung, Min-jae said quietly. I need to talk to you. 30 minutes later, he was sitting across from his oldest friend in a quiet cafe on the edge of the city. Jae-sung was the only person who knew both versions of Min-jae, the man he used to be and the man he'd become. They'd grown up together, survived together, built empires together, and if anyone could tell him he was making a mistake, it was Jae-sung. So, Jae-sung said, leaning back in his chair, his dark eyes sharp. You're calling off the wedding. I think so. You think so? Min-jae rubbed his face. I don't know, he exhaled. I saw someone. From before. Jae-sung's expression didn't change. Amara. Min-jae's head snapped up. How did you really think I didn't know about her? Jae-sung's mouth curved into a faint smile. You disappeared for 6 months back then. Stopped taking jobs. Stopped answering calls. I knew there was a woman. Min-jae said nothing. And now she's back, Jae-sung continued. And you're spiraling. She has a daughter. Jae-sung raised an eyebrow. Hers or yours? Mine. The word came out like a confession. Jae-sung was quiet for a long moment. Then he leaned forward, his expression serious. Are you sure? I saw her. She has my eyes. That's not proof. I know it is. Jae-sung studied him carefully. Does Amara admit it? She didn't deny it. That's not the same as confirmation. I don't need confirmation, Min-jae said, his voice rough. I know. Jae-sung sighed. He signaled the waiter for another coffee, then turned back to Min-jae. Let me ask you something, he said quietly. Do you love Serena? Min-jae hesitated. That's what I thought. Jae-sung shook his head. Then why the hell are you marrying her? Because she's... Min-jae stopped. She's safe. She's stable. She's everything I'm supposed to want. But not what you do want. No. So you're using her. The words hit like a slap. I'm not... You are, Jae-sung interrupted. You're using her to feel normal. To feel like you're more than just what we do. But you're not being fair to her. And you're not being fair to yourself. Min-jae looked away. You want my advice? Jae-sung said. Call it off. Today. Before it gets worse. It'll destroy her. It'll destroy her more if you go through with it and she finds out later that you never loved her. Min-jae closed his eyes. And the girl? Jae-sung asked. Your daughter. What are you going to do about her? I don't know. Well, you better figure it out. Because if Amara's been raising her alone for 5 years, she's not just going to hand her over because you suddenly feel guilty. I know that. Do you? Jae-sung's voice softened. Because this isn't a business deal, Min-jae. You can't negotiate your way into that little girl's life. You have to earn it. And that means proving you won't disappear again. The words settled over him, heavy and undeniable. Jae-sung stood, tossing cash on the table. Whatever you decide, he said, do it soon. Because the longer you wait, the worse it gets. He clapped Min-jae on the shoulder and walked out, leaving Min-jae alone. Again. By the time Min-jae got back to his apartment, it was late afternoon. Serena was there, sitting on the couch, surrounded by wedding binders and fabric samples. She looked up when he walked in, her face lighting up. There you are. I was starting to worry. He stood in the doorway, his chest tight. We need to talk. Her smile faltered. Okay? What's wrong? He crossed to her, sitting down on the coffee table so they were face to face. Serena, he said quietly, I can't do this. Her eyes widened. Can't do what? The wedding. I can't marry you. The color drained from her face. What? Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm sorry, he said, his throat thick. I'm so sorry, but I can't go through with it. She stared at him, disbelief written across every feature. Is this a joke? She asked, her voice shaking. No. Then, she shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. Why? What happened? I saw someone, he said. Someone from my past. Understanding dawned in her expression, and with it, hurt. Another woman. Yes. A tear slipped down her cheek. Do you love her? He didn't answer. Oh my God. She stood abruptly, pacing, her hands shaking. Oh my God, this is... She laughed bitterly. This is happening the day before our wedding. I know, and I'm sorry. I should have... Should have what? She spun to face him, her eyes blazing. Should have told me sooner? Should have not proposed in the first place? Should have not wasted 2 years of my life? He had no answer. Who is she? Serena demanded. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. Her name is Amara, he said quietly. I knew her before I met you. A long time ago. And you've been seeing her behind my back. No, I just saw her again yesterday. For the first time in 6 years. Serena's laugh was hollow. And one day was enough for you to throw away everything we built. It wasn't just seeing her. He stood, facing her. She has a daughter. My daughter. Serena's breath caught. You have a child? I didn't know. I swear I didn't know until yesterday. She stared at him, her face a mask of pain and disbelief. Get out, she whispered. Serena, get out. Her voice broke. Get out of my apartment. Get out of my life. He didn't argue. He gathered his things in silence, his jacket, his phone, his keys. Serena stood by the window, her arms wrapped around herself, tears streaming down her face. At the door, he paused. I'm sorry, he said one last time. She didn't respond, and he walked out. Minjai didn't go back to his penthouse. He checked into a hotel downtown, anonymous, quiet, somewhere he could disappear. He sat on the edge of the bed, his phone in his hands, staring at Amara's profile. He'd blown up his life in less than 24 hours, and he still didn't know if it would matter, because Amara didn't want him. She'd made that clear. But Lily, he looked at the photo again, the birthday cake, the frosting-covered smile, his daughter. He had to try, even if she rejected him, even if Amara never forgave him. He had to try. The next morning, he waited outside the salon again. This time, he didn't hide in his car. He stood on the sidewalk, hands in his pockets, watching as the city woke up around him. And then he saw them, Amara and Lily, walking hand in hand down the street. His breath caught. Amara saw him immediately. Her steps slowed, her jaw tightened. But she didn't turn around. She led Lily to the same corner as yesterday, crouching down to say goodbye. Minjay's heart pounded. Do it. Now. He crossed the street. Amara stood, her eyes widening as she saw him approaching. What are you... But he wasn't looking at her. He was looking at Lily. Up close, she was even more beautiful. Her dark curls framed her face in soft spirals. Her skin glowed in the morning light, and her eyes, his eyes, were bright and curious. She looked up at him, tilting her head. Hi, she said. Minjay's throat tightened. Hi, he managed. Minjay, don't... Amara started, but Lily was already talking. Are you my mom's friend? She asked. He glanced at Amara. She was staring at him, her expression a mix of panic and fury. Something like that, he said softly. Lily smiled. I'm Lily. I know. His voice broke. It's nice to meet you, Lily. Lily, baby, you're going to be late, Amara said quickly, her voice tight. Go find Miss Karen, okay? Lily nodded. She waved at Minjai, a small, innocent gesture, and skipped off down the sidewalk. The moment she was out of earshot, Amara rounded on him. What the hell do you think you're doing? She hissed. I called off the wedding. She froze. What? I called it off. Last night. Amara stared at him, her eyes wide, her mouth slightly open. You're lying. I'm not. Why would you? She shook her head. You're insane. Maybe. He stepped closer. But I meant what I said. I'm not walking away again. Not from you. Not from her. You don't get to just... Her voice cracked. You can't just blow up your life and expect me to let you into ours. I know. Then why are you here? Because I want to be her father, he said quietly. I want to know her. I want to be part of her life. And I know I have to earn that. But I'm asking you, begging you, to give me the chance. Amara's eyes shimmered with tears. What if you leave again? She whispered. I won't. You don't know that. I do. He reached out, his hand hovering near hers. Because losing you once almost destroyed me, and I didn't even know about Lily. Now that I do. His voice broke. I can't lose her too. A tear slipped down Amara's cheek. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I. They stood there, inches apart, the city moving around them. One chance, Amara said finally. One. And if you hurt her, if you disappear, If you let her down, if you break her heart, I will make sure you never see her again. Do you understand? I understand. She wiped her eyes, her expression hardening into something fierce and protective. Then prove it. And for the first time in 6 years, Minjae felt something he thought he'd lost forever. Hope. He really called off the wedding. But will Amara let him into Lily's life? And how will Lily react when she discovers the truth? Leave your comment now. If we get 10 comments on this video, I'll drop the next episode today. Comment below. Do you think Minjae deserves a second chance? What should Amara do now? How do you think Lily will react? 10 comments. Episode released today.